Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be discussing all of the books on my physical TBR. Now, I've already counted it up and it was 102 books, which isn't too daunting. I think that that's pretty doable, but it's still a lot. And so we're going to go through them very quickly because I want to share what they are about, but I also don't want to take forever. Even if I do 1 minute per book, we're going to be here over an hour and no one's got time for that. So we are going to go pretty quickly. And so the first thing is The Darkness That Comes Before by R. Scott Baker. And I don't know a whole lot about it. Actually, that's going to be a running theme throughout most of these. But basically, from what I understand, is we've got this world and there's some sort of crusade, and this traveler comes and he's part warrior, part philosopher, part sorceress. And the tagline here at the back says, is a history of this great holy war, and like all histories, the survivors write its conclusion. And I don't know anything else than that. And I'm excited for it. I hear a lot of good things about it from the booktube community. And so that's basically what I'm going off of. Even the back of the book isn't very helpful in giving a synopsis. So, moving on, not as quickly as I would like to, but we are moving on. The next book is The Bladed Faith by David Dalglish. Dalglish? I know I've butchered that. Um, so this one is basically a prince who has lost his kingdom, who is taking up the mantle to be an assassin in order to regain his kingdom. And this was a total cover buy. Give me something that looks like this with some strange masked dude on the cover, and I'm sold. I will be there all day for it. The next one on this list is Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. This one is daunting. This one everyone talks about is very dense and is a commitment. I think there are 10 books in the series. But this one is a priority for this year. And I don't know a whole lot about it other than those things, but basically from what I understand of what people are talking about is there's a lot of infighting and there's a lot of intrigue, and it's a massive, massive world. And I'm here for it. I am very go with the flow. It's okay if I don't understand everything. I'm just kind of here for it. And so I think that I'll be okay in that aspect. But I'm very excited to get this started. The next book on this list is The Stopover by T.L. Swan. This is a companion novel in the Miles High Club, and basically, it's a romance. They meet on a plane and they have a great time at their layover. And then, how long after did she say? About 12 months later, she is at work and he is there. And so he is wanting to start things up again, is what it seems like. And seems like a pretty interesting romance because she's not interested anymore. So we will see how it goes. The next book on this list is Pretend You're Mine by Lucy Score. I think this will be my first Lucy Score book. Everyone seems to really like her. This one is fake dating, which by now we should know I'm a huge fan of fake dating. And so he's getting ready to deploy for the National Guard, and his family's on his back about having a girlfriend and being stable and all those things. And so he gets Harper, and she becomes his fake girlfriend, and they start falling for each other. And apparently, he has some sort of dark secret in his past, and she's running from something. And so they're hiding all of those things from each other, hoping that the month will run out and then they're going to move on with their lives and never see each other again, which we know is probably not the case. The next book on this list is Faking with Benefits by Lily Gold. This is a why choose romance. Layla has never had a boyfriend. She's in her 30s, and she has these three guy best friends who make it their mission to help her learn how to date. And so they have all these lessons, and sparks fly amongst all of them. The next book on this list is Sticks and Stones by S. Massery and S.J. Silvis. I know I butchered both of those. But so this one is a hockey romance, and I love a hockey romance, and I love this cover. Like, very simple, very intriguing, and apparently this is a enemies to lovers sort of thing, which I'm a huge fan of. And so Ren Davis puts this guy, it doesn't say his name on here, but so she puts his hockey career at risk. And so he can't stand her. But she is family to his best friend. And so he has to deal with her. And they try to make each other's lives miserable. And she gives it right back. So I think this will be a lot of fun. The next book on this list is Never Fall for Your Fiance. And this is by Virginia Heath. This is another fake dating. And this guy, Hugh, pretends that he has a girlfriend to his mother. And then she decides she's coming to town. And so he picks this girl in order to pay her and let her live in his big house if she'll pretend to be his fiance. And Minerva is struggling, doesn't have any money. And so it's an offer that she can't refuse. So I love fake dating. Fake dating is so much fun. The next book on this list is An Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. This book is essentially these powerful families, and they have this game set up where you kind of compete against each other. And so this one girl, she gets chosen as a candidate for this game, and she is some sort of outsider and I guess not really welcome. And she's going to compete. And I love books that have some sort of trial. I don't know what it is. I love them so much. It is a trope that I am here for pretty much 90% of the time. And so they are magically dueling. The next book on this list is The Chase by Elle Kennedy. This seems to be a spinoff to the Off Campus series, and this one is the Briar U series. And we are following this girl, and she is living with her brother and his best friend, I think. And the best friend likes her, and he messes up, and so she already doesn't like him. And so it sounds like enemies to lovers and hockey, and I am down for all of the hockey romances, and especially if Elle Kennedy writes them because the other ones are fantastic. The next book is On the Ice by Julie Cross. This one is also a hockey romance, but this one follows Brooke, who has been experiencing a lot of grief, and she is playing hockey. And we're also following this guy who is in a hazing accident and ends up sidelined. And his punishment for his hazing is that he has to be the assistant coach to the girls' hockey team. And so, forced proximity, and I am here for it. This next book is Breaking the Ice by Julie Cross. I'm not sure if this one or the other one is first. I'd have to look it up. But so we're following the princess of the town, and she is trying not to date. She is swearing off boys. She's just focusing on her schoolwork and all those things. And this dude is on the hockey team but doesn't get to play much. And it sounds like he's wanting to be more ambitious, and he's also trying to win her heart. The next book is Ghosting by Tash Skilton. And this one is these two people who are working in a coffee shop. Well, they're not baristas in the coffee shop. They are customers at the coffee shop, and they just do their work there. And they don't know that they're both ghostwriting for rival online dating companies. And they bicker and banter at the coffee shop because they're fighting over the baked goods. And they end up meeting online from right where they are. Like, I love this kind of thing. I love the whole trope of we're pen pals and we don't know who the other person is, but we're falling for you, and then we're meeting in real life and we don't like the real life person. Oh, so much fun. The next book is Faker by Sarah Smith. This one is about a woman who is working in the construction business, and she has to be tough and put on this whole persona. And it's nothing like who she really is, because when you work in that kind of environment, like, you have to be a certain way. And so she becomes that. Well, she ends up attempting to be polite to this guy that she works with, and he's grumpy and sour and doesn't want anything to do with her. And then they get paired up for a charity project, and now they have to work close together, and they sort of get to know each other and see the inside of who they are. This next book is Still Breathing by Jennifer Hartman. This one is a darker romance. We are following Cora, who is having a really bad day, and to make matters worse, she ends up abducted with this guy who she hates. And so now they have to work together in order to escape. And so it sounds really intriguing. I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll figure it out. The next book on this list is Half a King by Joe Abercrombie. I actually have all three of these already, and so I'll show them briefly, but I'll hold this one while I talk. So in this one, we follow Prince Yarvi, I think is how you say his name. And so he is attempting to take back his throne, even though he never even wanted it in the first place. And what makes him different is that he has one arm, and he is still going to attempt to take back his throne. And he gains these supporters and this group of people that he learns from. And even then, it's still a daunting task that he's taking on, because of the fact that this world is very dark. And Joe Abercrombie is amazing. I love him. This is a young adult series, and I think that even though it's a young adult and he can't go as dark as he normally would, I think it'll still be really dark, and I think that it's going to be so good. I'm so excited about it. So the first one is Half a King, and then the second one is Half the World, and then the third one is Half a War. I think those are in the right order, hopefully. If not, it's okay. The next one in this series is The Spider by Leo Carew. I think that's how you pronounce it. And this is book 2 to The Wolf, which is, I think it's called Under the Northern Sky is the series name. But so we follow this guy Roper as he attempts to be a leader and take his place at the head of this war band in this town country. He's supposed to be the leader, but he's got infighting, and he's got these opponents from down south who are coming and trying to attack him. And so he's dealing with war on all fronts. And so this book starts off after the events of the first one. And I imagine it to be a lot like the first one, where it's a lot of moving chess pieces, and it's a lot of backstabbing and sabotage. And I really like the first one, but it's been a long time. I started this one and I just wasn't feeling it. So I put it down and waiting on a better time. So we'll see when that happens. The next book is The Two of Swords by KJ Parker. I have not read any KJ Parker, and this book has been on my list forever, probably a couple of years. I think it was the first KJ Parker book that I bought, and I have several on this list. And from what I understand of this book, it's Civil War, and they're going at it. And I love a good battle scene. I love a good war. And from what I've heard, KJ Parker writes really good battles and war scenes, and he delves really deep into his material. And so, if he wants to go deep into swords and fighting, I'm here for it. So, we will see. The next book on this list is also a KJ Parker. This is The Folding Knife. In this, we follow Basso, and he sounds like he's some sort of emperor, and he is super wise, and he's only made one mistake in his entire life. And it says, one mistake, though, can be enough. So it must be a pretty big mistake. And he's attempting to protect himself and protect his country from infighting and from opposing nations coming to attack him. So I'm really interested what that one mistake is. The next book is also a KJ Parker. This is The Hammer, and I'm not entirely sure what it is. I just know that it's really well known on Alan's channel from Alan at the Library of Alexandria. Man, I can't believe I forgot his channel name for a second there. But so apparently we follow this guy who has been ousted, like his whole family has, because of a civil war from years past. But so this last line says, "He is the hammer who will provide the spark that could ignite a brutal and bloody war." And so that's basically all that I need. The next book is Spellslinger by Sebastian de Castell. He is the author of The Traitor's Blade, which I read several years ago, and I loved his writing in that one. And so I'm really hoping that I'm going to enjoy his writing in this one as well. But so we're following Kellen, who is a mage, and he's supposed to be participating in these trials to avoid exile, and his magic is fading. And so I love a good trial. I love Sebastian de Castell, so this should be a good pairing. The next book is The Griever's Blood by Alexander Darwin. This is book 2 to the combat codes. And in the combat codes, we follow Kego as he goes to this school to learn how to be a Griever Knight. And the Grievers will battle one-on-one to settle disputes amongst the nations. So if you're battling over lands, you send your Grievers and they fight one-on-one rather than going to war. And so from what I can gather off the back of this book, we're going into year 2 of his combat school, and things are getting crazy because everything is happening behind the scenes, and we don't really know a whole lot about the school itself and the politics that are happening amongst the professors and the people who are in charge. And Kego is trying to figure all that out while also trying to survive going to this school because it is brutal. Like, brutal. And so I really enjoyed the first one. I can't wait to get to the second one. The next one on this list is The Company by KJ Parker. This one follows 5 war veterans, and they think that they're done with the war. And so they kind of go off and they colonize this area. And they have everything that they need. They took their wives, they took their tools and food and whatever. And they learn that one of them is holding on to some sort of secret. And apparently that's going to start another war. And I have not read anything by KJ Parker, but he has been on the list for a really long time. This next one, I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to read it. I may try it. It is The Name of All Things by Jenny Lyons. This is book 2 in her trilogy. The first one is Ruin of Kings. And I liked Ruin of Kings. I know a lot of people got really confused, and I got really confused. I had to flip and use the, I don't even know what it's called, thing in the back. And I was still a little bit lost, but I'm one of those that kind of like goes with the flow, and I don't need to know all the answers. And so I was fine with it and I enjoyed it. But it's been very long since I have read it that I don't know if I'd be able to like catch up at all. So we will see. The next one on this list is The Helm of Midnight by Marina Lostetter. This one follows, I don't really know who we follow, but apparently there's some sort of heist where they steal this artifact, which is some sort of mask that this serial killer used, and his spirit is in the mask. And so I'm guessing that the spirit takes over the people who stole it and they go out and kill people. So that's pretty interesting. This one has been on my list for a long time as well, and I just haven't gotten to it. This one is The Path of the Hawks by Ian Graham. I'm not really sure what it's about, but it follows this elite group of soldiers called the Hawks, and they take on all the unsavory tasks. And apparently, this dead guy is writing messages from the grave, and so they are looking into it. So I have no idea, but give me soldiers and I'm pretty much there for it. This next one is a darling of the YouTube sphere, and it is Jade City by Fonda Lee. And I'm super interested in it, and I hear really good things, just haven't gotten to it. There are so many books I just haven't gotten to. But so, this one is basically like The Godfather, from what I've heard. You've got some sort of crime lord in the city, and him and his family, and they're all in on this crime. I don't know. Um, they're called the Greenbone Warriors, and they're using jade to enhance their abilities and defend the island from foreign invasion. Okay, I didn't even know. Ooh, the front tag says, "Family is duty, magic is power, honor is everything." So it has all the right pieces for me to really enjoy it. It's just getting to it. This one will probably be a priority for this year. So let's look forward to that. This one is Guns of the Dawn by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And this one basically follows this girl who they say is very Pride and Prejudice esque, and she is going to war. And so we follow her as she goes to war and is on the front lines. And I've heard amazing things about this book. And so it's pretty high on my list, but I can only prioritize so much. So this may be a next year sort of read. The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. This one we follow Aaron, and he has followed the rules all of his life, and then suddenly his father gets executed for treason, and then him and his friend are thrown into these mines, it says, and so they're attempting to break free, and there's some sort of revolution going on, and I love a good revolution. So, ready for this one? The next one is Age of Assassin by R.J. Barker. And this one is basically following an assassin who it has no family, has a crippled leg, and is apprenticed to the best assassin in the land. So that's very different for assassins. And we're following him as he's attempting to save the prince from being murdered and save his own life. But so this one is Devices and Desires by KJ Parker. And this one follows this guy who is engineering a war to be reunited with his family. And so basically, he was sentenced to death for some petty rule that he broke. So he flees the city and completely leaves his family behind. And so now he is having to figure out a way to come back home. And another KJ Parker on the list that I own that I have not read yet. Okay, this one I have attempted to read before, and I think it just took me too long to read it in between because I was doing the ebook for it, and I always forget that I have ebooks, so the borrowing my loan from the library would run out, and then I would have to reapply for it, and it just took so long. And so I think if I physically read this, it'll be a lot better. But it is A Crown for Cold Silver by Alex Marshall. And this one, we're following 5 villains, 1 legendary general, and they're going for vengeance. And they had originally had a war, and they fought the war, and they won, and they were criminals. And they are legendary. And now they're kind of scattered. And this is about them coming back together. And I got so sucked in. The very first line says, "It was all going so nicely, right up until the massacre." Like, come on, like that is an intro, and I'm pretty sure it's the first page. Let me double check so I don't be a liar. Yes, I am correct. That is the very first line on the very first page. And like that kind of thing just sucks me in. Like I am all for it. And I was interested. I think it just took too long, and so I was having a hard time. So, It is still on the list, and I will try it again. Okay, this one is 2 of 3 from David Dalglish. David Dalglish. I cannot understand his name. This one is Soulkeeper, and I own several of his books, and I really need to read one of them. So, in this book, we are following Devin, and he is a soul keeper. Essentially, he is a preacher and a healer, but then the veil of magic gets torn, and we've got all these monsters coming into the world again. And so, he's going to have to take back his vows of peace and become a slayer of monsters and protector of the human race. And I'm really interested. I like this cover too. So, he's got really good covers. But so yeah, another one on the list. Okay, this next one is Lost War by Justin Lee Anderson. And this was a total cover buy. Like, I absolutely love this cover. I am a sucker for a white cover with color that pops. But so, the tagline on the back says, "The war is over, but peace can be held." And so basically, these demons are running around, burning the farmland, and violent mercenaries are causing chaos. And so this dude, Erinic, I'm not entirely sure, but so he gathers a band of these people who have different skills, and they all have to work together, even though they don't know each other and they probably don't like each other. And they're trying to restore order by putting this queen back on the throne. And so we will see how it goes. Okay, another YouTube darling, Empire the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I have actually never read anything by Jay Kristoff. I know that is probably going to get me banned from YouTube, but sorry. Look how floppy this is. This is a floppy paperback. I love a good paperback. But so, most everyone knows what this is. But just in case you don't, apparently there is some sort of city happening, and it's no longer daylight. No more daylight ever. And so the vampires come out and they just ravish all the time. And so we follow this guy, Gabriel, who is what they call a silver saint, which is a brotherhood dedicated to defending the realm from these creatures. And so we're following him as he, I guess, is attempting to protect the city from these vampires. So we will see. I really like the other cover better, but this one was at the half price bookstore. So this cover it is. Okay, so this was a total cover buy. Look how pretty that is. Like, I just love that. Anthony Ryan has some fantastic covers. And so it's called A Tide of Black Steel. And apparently it is Vikings, and that was all that I needed to know. And I'm here for it. If it's got Vikings, I am down. And look, it's so pretty. I love the shadows inside the weapon here. I'm not going to embarrass myself by attempting to know what kind of weapon that is, but it's so pretty. I'm super excited about it. This will probably be a priority read. This next one is Robin Hood by Howard Pyle. I have attempted to listen to the audiobook for this one. I couldn't get into it. And so I'm hoping that if I try the physical copy, that I'll like it a lot better. I love these editions. I love going to Barnes & Noble and just looking at these books because they're so pretty. I have several. I have read all of the others though, so don't come at me. But I really want to enjoy it. So we will see. Oh, wait, I should probably tell you what it's about. I don't know what the actual story is about, but I do know what the children's classic is about. And it's about this guy who is a thief, and he robs from the rich to give to the poor. And so it's about him and his band of thieves. I like a good thief. So I'm excited, but I don't know when I will get to this one. This next one is The Black Company by Glenn Cook. I have no idea what this is about. All I know is that a lot of people on YouTube who like a lot of those old classic fantasies love this. But so the back of it's pretty short, so I'll just read it. It says, "The darkness wars with darkness as the hard-bitten men of the Black Company take their pay and do what they must. They bury their doubts with their dead. Then comes the prophecy. The white rose has been reborn somewhere to embody good once more." I don't know what any of that means, but I'll get to it eventually. Okay, so this next book it's big. And I don't know anything about it except for I'm super intrigued by just a couple of snippets. And so it's going to be hard to show you. I've already ripped the cover just now. So it's sad. But it is the first binding by R.R. Verdi. But the very first tagline says, "Every great story begins with a lie," which was all I needed. But so the inside cover says, "All legends are born of truths and just as much lies. These are mine. Judge me for what you will, but you will hear my story first." And that's all that I need. I am super excited about it. And it's been staring at me for ages. But just look how big that is. That is massive. It is so big. I'm curious, how many pages are in this sucker? Oh, not that many. It just looks big. I mean, it's still considered a tome. I mean, I'm at like 800 pages. But I was expecting it to be a lot more. I was expecting like almost 1,000. But it's just over 800. So, I'm just being a baby. But yeah, so another one I'm excited for. Okay, this one is Upon a Burning Throne by Ashok K. Banker. And not gonna lie, I bought it solely for the fact that it was purple and it's got an elephant on it. I don't really even know fully what it's about. I know that it's inspired by a country, a nation overseas. And I'm not going to offend it by guessing and being wrong. But I know that it is inspired by something over there. And I have no idea what it's about, other than there's some sort of throne and elephants are involved. And that's all that I needed. But I hear pretty good things about it. So, we'll see. This next one is also massive. It is Dreams of the Dying by Nicholas Lietzu. Look at this cover. Look how crazy that is. Like, those are zombie looking. But so, this one is following this dude who has some sort of war trauma, and he's not really finding anything that brings him peace. And there's some other dude that he knows. I think that they work together. And the other dude is in some sort of coma. And so now our dude has to figure out what's going on. And the dreams are becoming reality. And you have no idea what's real and what's not. And that just seems wild to me. But mostly I bought it for the cover because how could you not? I mean, it's just wild. So, we'll see. This one I am currently reading, The Veiled Throne by Ken Liu. This is book 3 to the Dandelion Dynasty. There's so much. Basically, the empire gets taken over, and then there's a revolution, and then it gets taken over again, and then again, and again, and again, and we keep following people who are backstabbing, and so much political intrigue and outmaneuvering each other, and it's just so much fun, and it's also massive. Apparently, I have nothing better to do than read 900-page books. Okay, now this one, yes, it looks massive, but it is 3 in 1. And I'm thinking that it is actually a spinoff or some sort of companion to one of her other works. Because I started that one and that dude's name is on the back of the cover. So I think it's some sort of companion. But so, the only thing it says on the back is when a man picks up a sword, there are only a few productive things he can do. And the very lowliest of these is to become an adventurer. For the right price, no deed is too dirty, no task is too dangerous, no foe too ferocious, not even a demon. And this is massive. This is heavy. I started her book, The City Stained Red, and I liked it well enough, but I just couldn't get into it. I think I need to read it physically rather than the audiobook. I do own it, and it may need to be added to this list. I will decide if I'm going to read it or not. It's in storage anyways, so I can't get to it, so it would have to be audio, or I'd have to just wait. We will see. But so yeah, An Affinity for Steel, Sam Sykes. I don't know that I told you what it was or who it was by. Okay, this may be the last of the BookTube darlings that I may get banned for. The Will of the Many by James Islington. This one follows a guy who is infiltrating the government through some sort of school, I think. Basically, Will is something that they're like bargaining for. I don't know. I'm probably wrong. And it's been a long time today filming, and I don't want to read into the inside cover. So, that's the summary we get. This one is We Ride the Storm by Devin Madison. I love this cover. Like, it is fantastic. And so this one, we are following this empire, and it was just at war, and then everything kind of settled down. And then now there's going to be another war. Apparently, there's some sort of betrayal that causes everything to kind of break down. And I've said it a million times already. I love a good revolution. I love when things get chaotic and crazy. So, definitely something I will be getting to. This one is Trouble by Lex Croucher. This one is a Regency romance. Not a huge Regency romance, but this one sounds like a rom-com. So I think that I'll like it. I love a good rom-com. Rom-coms are where it's at. So we're following Emily, and she is taking a position that was actually supposed to go to her sister, babysitting this kid. And it says, Emily is a liar. She is not polite, she is not polished, and she has never taught a child in her life. So I think it's going to be hilarious. This one is Chemical Hearts by Crystal Sutherland. And this seems to be a teenage romance, and we're following, it seemed like the boy's perspective, and he is a romantic, but he's never really found that girl that makes his heart beat and gives him the butterflies. And there's this girl in his class, and she is very unconventional. She walks with a cane. She wears oversized, baggy boy clothes, I think is what it says, and doesn't really seem to shower. And he's falling for her. And so he wants to help put like the pieces of her brokenness back together. And so it seems really interesting. And says it's going to be a movie with Lily Reinhart, which is the girl from Riverdale. So that'll be interesting. This one has been on my list forever, probably since I learned about BookTube. This is Viking Warrior by Judson Roberts. This one is about a boy who has parents who are pretty high class, but he's been a slave his entire life. And so now he's trying to become a hero and kind of change his stars. And so we'll see how it goes. This next one is The Red Knight by Miles Cameron. This one's also been on my list for a long time. We are following this guy who is a mercenary, and he is kind of a leader of mercenaries. And he has been hired to protect this abbess and her nuns. And he gathers a group of men. And he's like, nothing I can't handle. We're going to go battle some wyverns and some dragons and whatever. And it ends up turning into a war. And so he's like, I don't get paid enough for this. So we will see how that goes. This next one is Seven Blades in Black by Sam Sykes. This one hits everything that I look for. She was left for dead, she was robbed, and now she's out for revenge. And that's all that I need to know. I love a good revenge story. One of my favorite books is revenge stories. So I love a good revenge. So we will see. This 3-book series. They have great covers though. There's this red one, and then the other ones are blue and orange. And so they're really pretty. But we'll see. This one is The Court of Broken Knives by Anna Smith Spark. This one follows this dude as he's attempting to take the throne. The back of the book doesn't really even say much. Just that the only thing anyone knows for certain is that Marith will stop at nothing in his quest for the throne. So we get very little information, but white cover with the red spine. I'm a sucker for a white cover. This one is The Obsidian Tower by Melissa Caruso. And we're following this girl who has been told her entire life to never let this door be unsealed. And something happens and decisions are made. And I'm imagining that this door gets unsealed and then chaos ensues. That's really all it says. This may be one that I don't really get to pretty quickly. And I don't know. It sounds fine. This one has been on my list for a really long time. I love a good memoir or biographies. I've read several in the last couple of years. But this one is The Opposite of Butterfly Hunting by Ivana Lynch. She is Luna Lovegood in Harry Potter. And we follow her story as she deals with all kinds of tragedies and growing up in the spotlight. And I've heard that her story is pretty heartbreaking. And I'm excited because I love hearing people's stories and how they've overcome the things that they've overcome. And it hits harder when it's a real person who I pretty much grew up watching. And so I couldn't find an audiobook for this one, so I'm gonna have to physically read this one, which is fine. It just takes me longer to get to physical reads, but I really want to get to it. So we'll see. This next one is The Priest of Bones by Peter McLean. And I've heard fantastic things about this one. And we follow this guy who has been away at war and then he's coming back home and his world has changed. And it's not like it used to be. And it's fallen into chaos. There's no food and everything's kind of gone terrible. And so he's out to kind of restore that. So maybe I like it. I do like the sword on the front though. I love a good sword. This one is Friends and Other Liars by Kalea Cobble, I think. This one sounds, I guess it'd be thriller. I don't know. Contemporary thriller. I don't know how to classify it. But so, this girl returns back home to go to a funeral of her friend who has died. And he, from before he died, he wrote these letters to them, to this whole group of friends, and said to reveal your darkest secrets to the friend group, or I'm going to, because I've set traps and sort of tricked you guys into it. You guys are going to reveal all your deepest secrets. And so apparently there's been a bunch of lies and things, and no one's telling the truth, and nobody really knows anything. And so he's revealing it all. And it sounds pretty interesting. I don't normally read things like this, so I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out. So this one is Hitting the Crossbar by Nicole Nwasu. I'm entirely not sure. But this one is book 2. And normally, if it's like a companion series, I wouldn't really care. But apparently the first one follows these 2. So I kind of need to read the first one before I read this one. But I don't know. It may not be a big deal. Because apparently this one follows them when they're in college. and trying to figure out if their relationship is worth fighting for within the chaos of growing up and learning who you are as an adult. And I don't know. I guess I'll figure it out. This one is The Man Ban by Nicola Marsh. And we follow this girl, Harper, who has sworn off men after a rough breakup. And she meets this guy at a wedding, and he rubs her the wrong way, gets under her skin. And so she decides that she's going to lead him on for the entire wedding and kind of humiliate him. And then she sees him later after that, and they get under each other's skin. And then apparently he like does something nice, and now she's like, maybe. And it says, when you swear off men for their foreseeable future, that means no dating. Hookups don't count, right? So, this one may be a lot of fun if it's enemies to lovers. Love enemies to lovers. This one is The Dating Dare by JC Lee. We are following this girl who has decided not to have anything serious, no serious relationships, and she is drinking with this dude, and he dares her to go on 4 dates with him, and so she agrees to go on 4 dates with him. And apparently they've bitten off more than they can chew with their relationship and trying not to be casual. So I love a good dare. This one is The Long Game by Elena Armas, and this one sounds so much fun. So just little pieces of the back I'll get to in just a second. So we're following this girl, and she gets into it hardcore with the team mascot who she works for. And so her dad is the owner, and so he decides to send her overseas, I think, in order for her to turn around this soccer team. And just listen to this. Her plans crumble upon discovering that the players wear tutus to practice, impractical, keep pet goats messy, and are terrified of Adeline, counterproductive. They're also 9-year-old girls. Meanwhile, her assistant is this guy Cam, and he's perfect for helping her, except that after one very unfortunate first encounter involving a rooster, Cam's leg, and Adeline's car bumper, he's set on running her out of town. So this sounds like it's going to be hilarious. I really need to get to this one pretty soon. Okay, so this one is 10 Rules for Faking It by Sophie Sullivan. And we're following this girl, and she's dealing with a lot. Like, parents are divorcing, her ex is a cheater, and she's struggling at work. She thinks her boss hates her. And so all of a sudden, she starts getting all these guys asking her out, and she's got all these fans that are voting for their favorite dates, and everything's kind of getting overwhelming. And so her list of 10 rules for faking it is to help her get through all of this chaoticness. I'm not so sure about this one, but we'll see. This one is After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one is where we follow this married couple, and they're having a hard time and on the brink of divorce. And they decide that the best course of action is to take a break for a year, no contact, no visitations, nothing for a whole year, and see where they're at. And there are no rules, anything goes, they can do whatever they want. So I think that that's going to be really interesting to see where they go with that, because they could go one of two directions. You know, they could really come to miss their partner, or they could just be like, hey, I'm free. So we'll see. Taylor Jenkins Reid usually does a pretty good job with her romances. There was one I read, and it was different. It was very unconventional. It wasn't what I expected it to be, and it went directions I didn't expect it to be. And so I expect a lot of the same stuff out of this one. This next one is Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one is following a whirlwind romance, and then after they're married, the guy gets hit in an accident and has to go to the hospital. And the girl sees his mom for the first time. Like, she's never met him. And apparently the mom didn't even know she existed. So that sounds chaotic and dramatic and sounds pretty interesting. This one is Come Undone by Jessica Hawkins. This one is a romance novel, but she's already married and she meets this stranger and sparks fly, and it sounds like a cheating romance. So, not sure how I feel about it. It was highly recommended, so I don't know. Not in a real big hurry to get to this one. The next book on this list is Anthem of a Teenage Prophet. I'm not sure who it's by. Hang on. Joanne Prologue or something? I am so not sure. But this book has been on my list for a super, super long time. It's probably been on this physical TBR the longest. And this book follows a teenage boy who predicts his best friend's death. And after that, everyone's like, what the heck is going on? And so now he kind of has to deal with the fact that he's getting these abilities and dealing with the town and all of these people who know what happened. The next book on this list is Odin's Child by Siri Peterson. And this book, we follow this girl who figures out that she is Odin's child. And there are other monsters that have come into the world, and chaos ensues. And that's really all that I know about it. This may be one that I don't keep forever. The next book on this list is Crime and Punishment, and I cannot pronounce this author's name, so it'll be on the screen. But so this book follows this dude who ends up committing a murder, and we're kind of following him, and I'm assuming this town, as they deal with the fact that he committed this crime. That's all that I know, but I'm really interested. This is one of the classics that I really want to read. And so it's kind of higher up on the priority list. So we'll see when I get to it. The next book on this list is Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. And from what I know of this story, it is a fantasy romance sort of story. And it's involving a queen, it's involving a thief, and they're kind of thrown together and they become lovers. And I don't know if it's enemies to lovers or just close proximity, but we will find out eventually. The next book on this list is A Sky Beyond the Storm by Saba Tahir. This is book 4 of the Ember and the Ashes series, and I flew through the first 3, and I loved the first 3. Well, I love the third one the least. I liked them a little bit less each time, but I loved these stories. But I also felt like they should have ended a long time ago, and because of that, I'm having a really hard time getting started reading this book. I've owned it forever, and I just can't bring myself to read it because of the fact that I feel like the story should have ended. I think after book 2, I felt like it should have ended. And so I will get to it, just no guarantee of when. But so we are following, I don't even remember their names at this point, like Layla and Elias. And Elias is a soldier in this world, and he hates it, absolutely hates it. But what's cool about them as soldiers is that they have these like masks, and it like has these like spike things that like form into their faces so that it becomes like a part of who they are. And Layla is a servant in his mother's home, I guess, but she is the headmaster of this academy for these soldiers. And so she's dealing with his mother, who is a horrible person, and having to deal with the fear of not doing things correctly and being punished and all these things. And so he's trying to break out of this academy that he's in. And Layla is trying to figure out what her brother was trying to tell her and uncover a lot of these secrets. And we follow their story, and it's really good. I really liked it. I like the writing style. I like how they're interwoven. It definitely took some turns that I was not expecting, and I didn't like those turns, but the books are still pretty good. But I don't know when I'll get to the book. The next book on this list is Alice Babylon by Pat Frank. This book follows a US where we have been demolished by nuclear war, and one town has survived. And so this is their story about how they survive through the aftermath of this nuclear destruction. The next book is Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan. This book has also been on my list for a really long time, and I don't know a whole lot about it other than we're following this dude who grew up learning how to be part of this special order, and he sounds sort of like a chosen one where he's destined to have this sort of path and he has no idea what's expected of him yet. And I think I tried to read this last year before maybe, and I just wasn't feeling it. But I think I got like 2 pages in or something. So it wasn't like I gave it a real shot. So it's still on this list, and we will see if I like it better this time around. This next book is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. And this is one of the classics that I have like wanted to read, but it also kind of terrifies me because I read Oliver Twist, and man, Charles Dickens can go on and on and on and on and on in the same sentence. Like, there is no need for a 5 line sentence, and they went on forever. And like by the time you get down to the bottom, like I get lost. Like if you're overly wordy, I'm gonna get lost. And so Great Expectations is a little bit scary for that. But so we follow this orphan who isn't having the greatest life, and then he meets these like upper class people, and he desires to be a gentleman, and he's learning about the rich, and that it's really not all that it's cracked up to be, and things like that. And that's all that I know. The next book in this list is The Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlem. I'm so bad at pronunciation. Um, so this follows a dude who is trying to be a thief, and he ends up picking the wrong mark, and he picks someone with quite a bit of power, and so now he's kind of stuck. The next book on this list is Wizard's First Rule by Terry Goodkind. This book has also been on my list for a really long time. In fact, Amazon, when I was looking up the synopsis, Amazon told me that I had ordered this book in 2017. That's how long ago it's been since I bought this book, and I still haven't read it. And so, this book, we follow this guy, and his father has just been like brutally murdered. And this woman shows up, and she's asking favors of him and expecting a lot of things out of him. And I think that she's asking a lot more of him on a grander scale as far as like the country goes. And he's gonna have to decide if he's gonna step up to the plate or not. And that's all that I remember of the synopsis. The next book on this list is Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. This book, we follow this guy as he's watched his family being murdered, and he kind of flees, and then he joins this band of, I guess, soldiers, and he is dead set on revenge. So after a few years, he returns back to the castle in order to reclaim what's his, and has no idea what he's up against. This one is also probably a YouTube darling. I think pretty much everyone has read Prince of Thorns, and I will eventually get to it. The next one is The Darkest Legacy by Alexandra Bracken, and this one is book 5 to the Darkest Minds series. This one is several years later after those 4 wrap up. And like I said before, I think that's probably why I'm having a hard time starting this one, is because like for me, for the most part, like once you're done, like the story's done. I don't want to keep revisiting. Joe Abercrombie is the exception. He could write 1,000 books in that series and I'll go back. But for the most part, like once it's completed, I'm done. And so If you don't know, the Darkest Mind series is following these kids who they got sick and then they gained these abilities, and they're separated into these camps in order to protect them, protect the world, but also so they can be experimented on. And they're divided into colors based on their abilities. You know, can they move things? Can they control things with their minds? Things like that. And we follow this young girl as she attempts to escape the camp, and she attempts to figure out her powers and deal with the whole revolution of the government sort of thing. It's very popular when Divergent, Hunger Games, and all those were coming up. The next one on this list is Save the Date by Morgan Matson. This one follows a young girl who is excited to have all of her siblings back in the same home because one of the siblings is getting married, but the wedding is a disaster. Everything keeps going wrong, and it ends up not being as exciting and the homecoming that she was hoping it would be. The next book is The Unwilling by Kelly Braffett. This book follows Jonah. I think that's their name, is Jonah. And they grew up in a castle and they have this special ability. And as they're getting older, they're learning that they don't really have a place in the castle. And they're learning that they're actually being used and that people have more plans to use them for their powers. And that's really all that I know. And so, actually, this is one that I don't really even hear about on BookTube at all. So, I'm going in almost completely blind with no one's opinions, which is pretty refreshing. This next one is another classic, The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo. This one, I love The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Disney classic, yes, absolutely. But I'm super excited to read like the source material because I want to know like how similar it is to the classic that I know. And I love Esmeralda. Esmeralda is one of my favorites ever, and I'm hoping to really get to delve into her and her character in this book. Um, if you don't know, then apparently you've been living under a bridge. But The Hunchback of Notre Dame is about this boy who has a deformity, so he's like hunchbacked, and his mother was killed in the beginning of the book, and so he grows up by the I guess he's I don't really know what he is, but he lives in the bell towers, and this guy Frodo comes and like takes care of him, but he's not really like taking care of him. And I don't know how close this will follow the Disney. The what I just described was the Disney version. And so I'm hoping it will follow at least a little bit, hopefully, but we'll see. This next one is We All Love the Beautiful Girls by that Jolene Prologue from earlier. I'm terrible. I'm sorry. The tagline is Who Suffers When the Privilege Falls? And so we're following this family who is pretty high and mighty, and they get cheated out of their life savings, and their son has some sort of thing happen to him where he like passes out, and so it becomes this whole big thing. And so we're kind of following them as they're figuring out life after these events. And I'm not entirely sure why I bought this book, but here we are. The next one is The Devil's Thief by Lisa Maxwell. Pretty sure that's her name. And this is book 2. The first one is The Magicians, I think is what it's called. And we're following this girl as she kind of like goes back in time in order to follow these breadcrumbs and find these like items that she needs. And we come back to present day and things kind of happen. And that's the setup for book 2. It's been a long time since I've read it. I really enjoyed it. I liked the banter between her and the other main character. And that was actually a big part of why I kept reading. And so I don't. This next one is Homeland by R.A. Salvatore. This is The Legend of Dritz, and I don't know anything about this book other than so many people love this story. And because they love it and they say really good things about it, and I mean, he's a warrior, so I don't really need much else. And so it is on this list. The next one is Fate of the Fallen by Kel Cade. We are following this dude as he realizes that he is destined to be a hero, and he sounds super excited for it. Like, he is all in, he wants to do it, but he's figuring out that it's hard to be a hero when everyone around you is telling you to surrender. And he's like, that's not how the prophecy goes, that's not how it's supposed to happen. And so he's trying to figure out how to become a hero, or at the very least, survive. This next one is The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. And I have started this one, but I DNF'd it because it it was on ebook and it was just taking me way too long to read it. And I was enjoying it. I just kept getting lost in it because I couldn't remember things because it just takes me so long if I read it on ebook. And so this one, we follow this boy as he is in this like academy sort of place, and he is supposed to take his trials like the next day, and the whole castle just gets destroyed. Like, they get overtaken, and him and his friend end up like fleeing, but everyone else that's still around is telling a whole different story. And so we're led to believe that there is this whole big conspiracy happening, and him and his friend are following like these breadcrumbs to try and figure out what is happening. And that's all that I know, but they do have like some sort of powers, and they do have these things that are like attached to them where they can't use their powers or they get trapped. And so it's a pretty interesting story, and I'm excited to get back into it. Just not sure when that will be. The next book is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. In this book, we're following a mom as she discovers, or while she's attempting to find her child who's been kidnapped, and she has powers in this world. And it sounds like the world has been like decimated, and it sounds very like post-apocalyptic sort of style. M.K. Jemisin is very loved, and I've not read anything by her, so this will be the first one. This next one is The Tiger and the Wolf by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I think I still butchered that. But so, this one follows this young girl who, her father is chief of the Wolf Clan, and her mother is, I think she's high up in the Tiger Clan, and the daughter has been like outcasted because she's got both abilities, and now everyone in the clans can shift into whatever animal they are, but she can do both. And that's not okay in their world, but she refuses to give up either side of her. And so it sounds like we're going to be following her as she's discovering how to stand up for herself and how to sort of mesh both of those worlds together. This next one is Wake of Vultures by Lila Bowen, and we are following this slave who ends up involved in these events, and that ends up changing their life completely to where now they aren't a slave anymore and they've got all the good items, and they're kind of, I don't know the word, people want to be them and like looked out on, and and apparently in this world people are stealing children and things like that. And so it's, I don't know, this is one of those that I could be really iffy on, but it might be interesting. This next one is A Dragon's Path by, what's his name, Daniel Abraham. And this is a fantasy series, and apparently we've got some sort of war going on, but it seems like we're following multiple perspectives. So we're following this dude who used to be a hero and he's trying to stay out of the war, but he may end up roped back into the war. And we're following an orphan, and we're following a prince, is what it sounds like, as this war kind of takes hold of their land. And I've heard really good things about this series, so I want to read it, but that's literally all that I know. So we'll see when I get to it. This next one is The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. This one we follow a girl who is very organized, very achievement driven, very plan driven, always sticks to her plan. But then suddenly things happen and she ends up losing her internship for her pre med. And so she ends up living at dad's and she hasn't seen dad in a long time. And so while she's at dad's, it seems like she's just deciding to kind of reinvent herself and do things that she never would have done before. And it sounds very coming of age. Morgan Matson does a really good job of that coming of age story. And I usually like her writing, so I think that this will be a good time. The next one on this list is Ruin's Wake by Patrick Edwards. This one sounds more science fiction, but I'm hoping it's not too science fiction. I'm hoping it's more like dystopian so that it's a lot easier for me to read. But this one sounds like we're following multiple different people. We're following, hang on, let me check my notes. We're following a soldier in exile looking for his dying son, and we are following a young woman who is in an abusive marriage, and we're following a scientist. And this world seems very post-apocalyptic, sort of dystopian. That was the other word I was looking for. It's time for bed. Um, but so I don't know how I feel about this book. It's one of those that was at the thrift store, and so I just kind of grabbed it. So it's kind of low on the list, but the goal is to eventually get to it. This next one is Legacy of Ash by Matthew Ward. This one was a total cover buy. I love the cover, and I just had to have it. But so we're following this republic as it's kind of like crumbling, and we're following different perspectives. We're following a republic's champion, we're following a sworn enemy, and we're following someone's sister. So, lots of different perspectives, and I am expecting great things from this book. I don't hear anyone ever talking about it, but I'm super excited about it. I love a good Republic story where everything's kind of crumbling. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. This next one is another daunting book. It is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Tolstoy. I cannot talk anymore. Okay, so this book is following this woman who seemingly has it all together, but she doesn't feel fulfilled in her life. And so she starts this affair with this other dude. And this is an old book, so like any kind of affair is going to be very scandalous. So it'll be really interesting to read. I'm really hoping that it's a little bit more direct writing rather than all that flowery stuff because I'm really interested in this book. I hear really good things, but I don't want to get lost. So here's hoping. This next one is one that I'm super excited about. It is The Pariah by Anthony Ryan. And this was also a big cover thing. Do you see this cover? Like, this cover is fantastic. And we're following this dude who is very satisfied with the life that he's living, but things happen. And so now he is on a new path and he ends up in the king's army. And that's all that I know. I just needed to know that much and that cover, and it is high up on my priority reads. Okay, this next one is Dead Moon's Rising by Jack Whitney, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but this is all that I needed to know. Their kingdom knows only prosperity, sanctuary, and peace, a loving home for all their people. Of course, these are all lies. That's all that I need. Anything where we've got some sort of established culture, established lore, and then we find out that it's all wrong and it's all lies. Oh, I am here for it. So, we'll see when I get to this one. Okay, so this next one is The Traitor by Seth Dickinson. And this one has been on my list for a long time too. I bought the second book first, and then I didn't realize it was the second book. So then I had to get the first one. So that's why I have both, and they'll both be on the screen. But so The Traitor is the first one. And we're following this woman as she is on a plan for revenge. Everything was kind of overrun, overwritten. They kind of destroyed her culture. They kind of destroyed everything that she knew and stood for. And so she has decided that she's going to infiltrate the high society and the government, and she's going to rise high enough to set her people free. And that sounds fantastic. I just don't know when I'm going to get to it. Hopefully next year, but there's no telling. There are so many books here, and this isn't even all the books I want to read. So, might be a minute. Okay, so this next one is called Next by Michael Crichton. And Michael Crichton does a lot of science fiction. He does a lot of very in-depth science fiction. So I have no idea how I'm going to do with that. But so this one basically follows a world where we're messing with genetics and we can alter genetics. I don't know if that's like altering like us as like we are or like babies coming up, but they're being altered. Chimpanzees are involved, and it sounds wild. Sounds like one of those situations from like Jurassic Park where they're like, we wondered if we could, but we didn't stop to think if we should. And so I think that's going to be very chaotic and a lot of things come back to bite us. But so I'm really looking forward to my first Michael Crichton. So this next one is The Companion by Kate Allender. And we're following this girl who is an orphan. Her family died. They were in an accident. She was in the accident too, but she survived. And she was in an orphanage and she was chosen to be a companion for this little girl in the family who's kind of odd. And as time goes on, the little girl that we're following is learning that things are kind of weird and is starting to feel like she doesn't even understand the family that she's with or understand herself. And it definitely sounds like a thriller. So I'm super excited for it. Hopefully I'll get to it soon. This next one is Dance of Cloaks by David Dalglish. I cannot ever remember that last name. This next one is Dance of Cloaks by David Dalglish. This book follows an assassin, and he is in like an assassin's guild, and he is the son of the most feared assassin. And he himself is pretty fearless and cold and cunning and all those things. But one day he saves this girl from being killed by his own people. And so now everyone is kind of like, whoa, are you really? And even he is like reconsidering, like, what are we doing? And so I think that's a nice twist on the assassin story. The next one is Disclosure by Michael Crichton. This one follows a company man who is, he was hoping to be the new boss and he thought that his life was all planned out, but the new boss is painting him as a villain. And so there's kind of this conspiracy to sort of oust him and take him down. And he is learning that there's a whole lot more secrets going on within this company than he knew. And it sounds like a race against the clock to clear his name. And so it sounds pretty good. Okay, the last book on this list is Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. And we are following, it sounds like a couple of different perspectives during this world. Apparently there's some like betrayal and things happening, which I'm a big sucker for betrayal. And this kid Charlie, apparently he heals himself, and so that's pretty interesting. I love a good healing superpower. And so I'm guessing we're gonna figure out like where these came from, who else has powers, and how it kind of fits into the world. I've heard really good things about this story. I don't know a whole lot more about it. But yeah, I'm excited about it. But so, oh my gosh, guys, if you are still here, bless your soul because this was a lot. And I don't know how you made it through. You must be very dedicated because that was a lot. And I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me as we chat through these books. My plan is to start working my way through all of these books. It's just going to take me a long time because I don't read a lot of physical books, but hopefully I can find some audiobooks of a lot of these and we can get through them a lot faster. But thanks for hanging out. Have you read any of these? Which of these would you recommend starting with? And chat with me more in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.